Hello, all. Welcome to the next episode of Tech on Toast. And this week, we're very happy to be joined with Patrick Clover, founder of Stampede. Patrick, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks, Chris. How are you?
I'm all right. And not everyone asked me that. You're very kind. So thank you. No, I'm very good. And where are you, Patrick? Because I always like to ask us at the start. I'm based in Wales and you are?
So we are based in Edinburgh. So at the moment, I'm working from home, but offices in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Oh, lovely place to be. If you haven't been there, you should visit. It's a beautiful city. So, I mean, before we get into it, tell us a little bit about you and how you've got to this point.
So yeah, I'm Patrick, founder at Stampede, and I guess I'm a natural problem solver, and I'd probably describe myself as a hardcore technologist. Like I love good experiences with technology, and I get so infuriated when I have bad experiences with technology. And I think the problem solver part of me sees those things and says, there must be a better way of doing that. So, applying technology to solve real world problems. And it's actually quite a stressful mindset to have, to be honest, because it kind of spans across everything that I do. And so, yeah, living with
I'm exhausted already thinking about your life. It must be exhausting because you're constantly iterating, right? You're constantly thinking, I need to change that.
Totally, yeah. Or like that thing could be better, or there's an opportunity here. And so I guess just to give you a bit of the why, about 9 years ago, I was working for a company that was installing Wi-Fi networks. So it was an IT company, and lots of our customers at the time were saying, we want to use this free Wi-Fi network to be able to collect customer data. And there wasn't really anything that I was happy with, given what I've just said, that worked well enough. And so we did try like various things that were out there, but most of them had a really poor customer experience. They seemed to be very tech focused. So they wouldn't like recognize customers if they visited twice. The user experience was pretty weak. And some of this technology still exists today in the airports, for example. And the whole process is pretty cumbersome. And it's just seemed like there's got to be a better way of doing this. And the upside was so massive because of how many people use those services.
Yeah.
So I kind of pitched this idea to my boss at the time, and he said, like, that's insane. That's not our business. Like, we basically fit boxes. And so like 3 months after that, I quit my job and sort of started working on a prototype and built something, and then just started pitching it to local businesses in Edinburgh. And funnily enough, like just by chance, and I learned this recently, Edinburgh has got 3 times the number of hospitality businesses per capita than any other city in the UK, including London.
Wow.
So if one was to start a business selling into hospitality, Edinburgh's not the worst place to do that. And so yeah, for the first sort of 3 months, I was like knocking on doors, just saying, this is what you're doing at the moment. This is how I think it could be improved. And yeah, I guess was quite successful in doing that. And the product sort of spoke for itself. And we then started to onboard a significant number of customers. And then we created this, I guess, second order problem, which was we were now collecting loads of really great, rich customer data for customers, but they didn't really know what to do with it. And so that led to, I guess, what Stampede is, 7 years on today. And so Stampede is a full service platform for any tech that interacts with customers on the venue's behalf. So bookings, Wi-Fi, loyalty, reviews, gift cards, you name it. The reason that there's so many things there is because, I've just been pretty frustrated, I guess, with the offerings that exist out there. And I thought there has to be a better way. This should be simpler for operators. Because at the moment, like you walk into a venue and you're not recognized, even if you go there, once a week, the front of house staff are always changing. So it's always like you're treated like a stranger. And I guess in an ideal world, hospitality is you walk in there and they're like, hey, Patrick, welcome back.
Yeah, it's the cheers mentality. It's that like in Boston, every corner bar, they recognize you as you walk in, right? Your beer flies down the bar.
Totally. And so I think there's this like amazing opportunity for technology to enable that type of experience and not get in the way of, I guess, like operations and like, the day-to-day stuff, where it can just sort of work in the background and deliver an exceptional amount of value while allowing businesses to focus on what great hospitality looks like. So I guess that's like why we exist, and a little bit about me.
I think it's brilliant. I mean, it's lovely. I'm just picturing everybody listening, packing their bags and moving to Edinburgh. Now you've told them that, and I actually think because I think Quickserve are also based up in Edinburgh.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Daniel's up there, and I think it's interesting. I think it's a great city, and you're right. And I think you're not on your own up there, but it is quite interesting, isn't it, that you can have a really good go at what you're doing and get a good picture of what success looks like. So yeah, it's a great idea. They'll all be on their way up on the train from London. And you talked very briefly about there, but like customer retention, and actually the golden goose of hospitality actually these days is gaining a new customer or keeping an old one. Losing, that takes a long time to do, but losing one's really quick, right? It's really easy to upset people. How is Stampede supporting that? I know you did briefly explain it there, but just expand a little bit on how you guys can help support retention.
So I think a large part of retention is just about so like the first order problem is like do customers have visibility of their retention metrics? So retention is a problem in any business. By the way, it doesn't matter whether you're a hospitality business, like
it's an evergreen problem as well, I think.
Yeah, totally. So it's obviously always it's more cost effective to retain your existing customers rather than acquiring new ones, and I think that is a truth that exists like across the board. And I think if you were to look at industries that I would say are more tech literate, like SaaS or e-commerce, the retention tools that exist are phenomenal. So you can like pull a report of, I mean, we have it for our business where we can look at attrition over, a period of months. And so we might say, what's our attrition like this month versus last month, or this year versus last year? And it will map out a whole cohort of like, this is what the customer behavior is telling us. And this is when, I guess most importantly from that observability is when your retention points really matter. And so that might be if you've got loads of customers coming in January, at what month do those customers start dropping out? At what month do they stop visiting more often? So I guess the first thing that we do is we give that type of reporting to all of our customers, no matter if they're, a single site operator or, they're operating 100 units. And the numbers are really interesting just on that. But I think once you have that set of customer data, you can effectively deploy. You have the insight to be able to deploy strategies to say, using the January example. So we've got loads of new customers coming in January, but 2% of them are coming in the month after, and then there's a drop off where that says 0.1% of them are coming in the month after that, and then you effectively never see them again. So there's really like there's like a time window. If that set of metrics is true for your business, there's a time window that says, actually, let's do whatever we can to get them coming back in, and then let's look at whether that's being successful or not. So what we're doing to help is we're giving all venues the ability to see that set of data, and then we're also giving them the tools, I guess retention tools, to be able to say, if your retention metric is below 2%, then send someone this email. Or whatever it is, send them this SMS or incentivize them to come back in, but on an individual basis. So really trying to help with a behavioral change rather than a business as usual type of environment.
Yeah, the old bounce back or the 2-for-1 or whatever. Before tech, when I'm old, when I used to be in operations, that's the kind of thing we would use. But I think we're still using that, but it's in a digital fashion, right? So it's much more interesting. And you were going to mention numbers, but you coiled back from it. What kind of? Can you give me an idea of kind of results around the January thing? I mean, I don't want to put you on the spot.
I mean, it does. So I mean, one of the things that we knew was going to happen, to be honest, because we've been doing this for a while. And the data is pretty true on an aggregate scale, is that December in hospitality is exceptionally busy. Retention January, February, March is exceptionally weak, and then it starts to pick up again. So one of the things that we see is that in January you have a lot of new customers and repeat customers, which is great, but then I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head, but about 5% of them come back the year later. But the window in between is, I would say almost like non-existent. Yeah. And so everybody should be creating campaigns to say, if we've seen someone in December, here's a strategy over the next 6 months, or here's a workflow of emails, text messages, or whatever the campaign is, to be able to drive those people back in. So to make that behavioral change happen, because at the moment it's almost like the business as usual seasonality is the status quo, but people aren't really doing a huge amount to buck that trend. I guess is what I would say. And I think I empathize with the challenges, because we obviously speak to operators on a daily basis, and December is like, all hell's breaking loose.
Yeah,
and they're all, leave me alone, we don't want to do anything. And I totally appreciate that, but that is absolutely the time when all of those things should be engineered. It's obviously a bit late talking about this now, because we've got another X months to go, but those trends kind of exist throughout seasonal events in the year, and you see a large amount of footfall going out, and then the drop off kind of happens naturally. And so I think it's about trying to engineer that data in a way that will change people's behaviors. And I don't think that's necessarily about offering huge discounts, 2-for-1s or anything. I think it's more just about saying, hey, we're here, this is what we're doing this month, to a subset of people that could be retained that currently aren't.
No, and I think that's one of my questions, is about kind of connecting the data because you're gathering lots of data, which is a fantastic thing, right? If you can use it, and if you use it properly, and if it's, I think you used the word rich before, about rich data. So is it valuable? I mean, how hard is that to do, to actually then, once you've gathered all of this data, and then segment it and market to it properly?
So I would say extremely difficult, because data exists in these silos, and we have this problem in our business as well. And I think it's true of every business, where there are these pots of data that might be invaluable, or might tell you something when added to another set of data that you couldn't have come up with if the two things weren't joined. And I think that's one of the problems that exists with I guess it's like a 21st century problem. Everybody's been creating these tools to solve a specific problem. I don't know, for SaaS businesses, Calendly is a great example. It solves the problem of booking in time with someone. In hospitality, there's loads of solutions for tipping, ordering, marketing. So it might be you're using MailChimp for marketing, you're using, I don't know, something for sign-up forms, trying not to name names. You're using something for tipping, but all of these bits of data kind of exist in different places, and piecing them all together it almost becomes like a data science project. And the resource that exists within hospitality doesn't support that type of activity or talent, I guess, just because the salary of a data scientist could go from 300K to 500K for a hospitality operator, probably, unless you're, in the thousands of units. It's just out of the question. And so I think, in answer to the problem, connecting the data is exceptionally hard. And also, when they're all from different places, it becomes stale as soon as it gets passed over. So unless there's a constant two-way sync,
I think someone called it a single customer view. That was a great way of really looking at it. So all in one place, all connected on the same customer journey, rather than having, as you say, dipping in and out of different products potentially, or different SaaS products. I think that was the way it was described to me.
Yeah, so that's exactly how, for the initiated person, that's exactly how I'd say what we do works. So if someone's using our marketing platform, booking platform, Wi-Fi platform, reviews platform, all of that stuff is vertically integrated. So if you're sending out an email about bookings, we can then track conversion on number of bookings, on footfall generated, on retention cohorts, on number of reviews left. So all of that stuff comes for free, effectively. So there is no interconnect between any of these different systems. Obviously, we do have third-party integrations, but naturally, we prefer our first-party ones. I think I would caveat that with, there are some exceptionally good software platforms within hospitality. There's a product called Toggle, which I would describe as one of those platforms. Yeah. And so, if someone was to say, are we going to use our gift cards over theirs? I would say, let's use theirs all day, every day, because it's an exceptionally good platform. I think, unfortunately, there are few examples of where that is true. And so that's why we offer all of those various things.
No, that's great, and I think it was interesting before you were discussing. I brought up 2-for-1. That's bad me, but I brought up 2-for-1s, which most operators would be wincing at. But you must get involved in quite a lot of campaigns, or help design. Do you help design campaigns, or how does that work? And give me some examples, I suppose, of good and bad without naming and shaming.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got. I'll focus on the good, I think.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, just to keep it nice and upbeat. So we've got a campaign manager that's customer facing. So I mean, for some of our customers, so like in December, for example, they are just too busy to run these type of promotions. So we'll proactively reach out and say, based on the data that we've got within the platform, this is some things that we think could work really well. And we'll basically provide the template, the customer list, and all we need is the approval from the customer. So try and make that really slick for customers that we're using something like MailChimp. Using our platform is a really great alternative. So they can, build out their own weird and wonderful campaigns, any designs they want. It takes a few minutes and then they hit send on it. I guess in the positive campaigns that we've seen, so we've got a customer called Brick House that's in Southend. And so they're a really great use case for us. So I'm going to give two contrasting campaign examples here. I would say it's like casual dining type of food. And so every Monday to Thursday, they run like a meal deal, which is a burger wrap, fries, and a drink for $9.95. And the email is really simple. It's got like this GIF that kind of like flashes, and it's like $9.95. Here's an example of these three things. And then the call to action is book now. So from that campaign, which gets sent out once a week, they're seeing an additional £10,000 worth of visit ROI. So number of people that were tracked into the venue that wouldn't have come into the venue had they not received that campaign, that then came in.
Clear.
Quite elaborate. And so they also get 106 extra bookings from that a week. So
just put that on your website. That'll do, right? So, I'm just because I'm a restaurant guy who loves tech. It's not the other way around, and I find it riveting. I find it so interesting that the golden goose, as I called it before, is finding that new customer. Getting a new customer is absolute gold, because once you get them, you can do a great job. You can keep them, right? And regardless of frequency, they're yours for a while. And I think just being able to give that example of driving revenue through what you do, through clever campaigns, or just through it's more about. Is it a bit about discipline around marketing and a bit of discipline around the way you behave around your customer data? Because I suppose rhythm and everything like that is quite key, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that people get into the flow of things, don't they? And it's people kind of don't like change. And so you do what you've always done because that's the thing that you do. And so if what you do is you take a CSV from one place, you upload it into another, and your job for the week is like to send out an email on a Friday, you do the things that you need to do in order to make that happen. Even if it doesn't, even if it's only tracking email opens, clicks, and number of sends, which is the reality for, I would say, 95% of operators. So yeah, I think that all of those things, okay, fine, like they need to be, there's a hygiene factor there, but actually the thing that matters is how many extra bookings are you getting, how many people are coming back into the venue, and ideally, are they spending like more money with you? And if you can't, I think this will be true, more true over the next 3 years. If you can't demonstrate those things using a platform, you'll get outbeaten, because the people that can do that, they'll be able to use that as a lever to say, okay, well, this is what works on a Monday to a Thursday, this is what works on a Friday to a Sunday, using a really empirical data set that you just can't argue with.
I think, and as you'll know, during the pandemic, a lot of people sold tech, and a lot of things appeared, and people bought off the shelf just to survive, right? Just to open and get whatever done. And I think you're so right. I think that as the industry becomes more tech savvy, as Tech on Toast keeps educating people and explaining more and more about products, that actually people will start to understand that there are better ways of doing things, there are slicker ways of doing things, and there is a return. there is, I'm guessing people like you don't waste your time just building stuff for fun, so there is a return on building this stuff.
Yeah, no, definitely. Everything that we do is centered on ROI. So like when someone's logging into the platform, we're constantly like, this is how everything's performing. Here's some suggestions on, how we think things could be better. And if a customer isn't seeing I would say a 1 to 10 ROI in terms of how much they're paying us versus how much we're generating back, then we're failing. And we rarely lose customers for that reason, which is obviously great. I'm going to give just another example here.
Yes, give you a second example. I interrupted you. I apologize.
Yeah, no problem. So this is like a polar opposite customer, which is the Kitchen Group, which is a Michelin star group of restaurants run by Tom Kitchen. And so their customer is worth, going back to the previous example, the average customer value in that example is about £18. On the Tom Kitchen side, it's 10 times higher, so about 180 to 220. Wow. And so they send out campaigns, and the style of their campaigns is obviously very different, and the content is very different. It's more talking about the experience, what specials they've got on their a la carte menu, what they've got on their tasting menu. So things that are like, I guess, aspirational, that people see and they're like, oh God, I would really like to try that new thing, or I've never seen that done before. And so for their campaigns, they generate a similar amount of ROI, but the number of people that actually come back in is far less. So for their campaign that they sent out talking about a new tasting menu, that generated about £11,000 worth of ROI within the week. So yeah, really great. And that represents about 100, 200 people actually coming back in to the venue.
Wow. I think it's, I'm blown away actually, because often I do a lot of these chats, right? But I suppose I should dig deeper. But when I'm talking to people, it's great to hear that actually and obviously most guys create a return on what they're doing, but it's really interesting to hear actual metrics around it. It's cool. I think that's fantastic. And what about that then? So you're gathering all this data, you're assisting with campaigns, and you're gathering feedback, I presume, as well, from customers. How does that all wrap up to, I suppose, to improve overall operations or customer engagement, or one of those big tick boxes?
Yeah. So on the feedback side, I think that there's a predatory side to hospitality, I guess, which is I guess I would say that they're big tech providers.
Right.
I don't mind naming these people because they're the true enemy, I would say. So talking about Google, Meta, probably categorize TripAdvisor, where the incentives that they have aren't necessarily aligned with the customer in the same way that the customer thinks they are. And so they're creating these two-sided marketplaces, and it's what they've always done. And so their incentive is actually to retain that customer for themselves, even if they were driven initially by the operator venue. And I'm not saying boycott those things. There's obviously a place for them. But I think that what they've done is effectively taken away control from the operator being able to have conversations and be able to have relationships with their customers directly. Yeah, exactly. So I think on the reputational side, like if you go to, let's use a nightclub as an example, because this is where we see a lot of great reviews coming in. But if you go to a nightclub and you get kicked out for being, drunk and disorderly, maybe, I don't know, you've had a bad week.
You met me before.
Yeah, everyone's probably been there. Everybody's got a vice. And so, you get kicked out and you think, oh God, I'm going to go on to TripAdvisor and I'm going to, say this place is terrible for XYZ reason. And that exists out there on the internet, and it brings down, the review score of that business. So for any new customers that are, using those discovery platforms, they see that, and it's not necessarily representative of the type of experience that business is trying to create. And that can be like detrimental to their, to that operator's ability to get new customers or to be the place that people want to go.
And it can be really circumstantial, right? That feedback can be really based on one, it is based on one experience by one person. Yeah,
totally. So the way that our platform works is we proactively ask everybody that's been in the venue how their time was. Simple, 1 to 5 stars. It's not a survey that's like, Tell me how well cooked your steak was. Tell me how the air conditioning was. Like filling out your life history. But it's really to get a sentiment of how well the business is performing. So a customer basically can go on to that. If they leave the business because they were kicked out or whatever, they can go on and they can vent their anger. The feedback goes straight to the GM that was working, whatever night that was, and then they can decide how they want to respond, rather than the new customers seeing that as an example of like how they treat customers. So it might be that they reply saying, "Look, really sorry that you had a bad night, but we'd love to see you again for whatever reason. We've had a chat internally, and we either were too heavy-handed, or whatever the example might be." But it gives the ability for operators to create that type of dialogue that I really think is necessary with.
Yeah, like what would happen at a table, for instance, if you're having a complaint within a business, you'd have a two-way conversation, hopefully with the manager, and fix it.
100%, and that happens all the time with hospitality, which is great. You're at your table, then they're coming over. Is everything okay? Can I get you anything else? But for some reason, when people leave, it's like we'll give that capability to someone else that we don't speak to. So it might be the Google, TripAdvisor, Facebook, and it's kind of crazy. So anyway, we have that platform. We generate about 8,000 bits of feedback a day, and then again, like, we created this second order problem, which is like there's too much feedback to go through here. So we run it through. We run all of the text that gets submitted through some pretty sophisticated machine learning technical. What it does on the output side is it basically spits out, here are things that you're doing exceptionally well based on sentiment. So it might be that people are talking really positively about your coffee service tables, but they're having a really bad time with the, Guinness heating. Do you know what I mean? It'll pull out what the areas of that the business needs to improve on, and then all of that stuff gets tracked over time. So if you're the GM of the business, you could look at this within 5 seconds. You'll be able to say, okay, well, here are our priorities for the next 3 months. We need to work on our speed, on our Guinness, and on our service, maybe.
I love the fact you went down Guinness. You're definitely but and what's interesting is that it's personal, right? And hospitality, I always say, is a very personal business. There's a lot of emotion involved. There's a lot of experience you mentioned before as well, which is heavily part of what we do. But personalization is in marketing, and actually in engaging feedback and kind of and then segmenting has become absolutely huge, right? And you look at the monsters of McDonald's, and the fact that they're scanning my number plate and telling me what my 4-year-old wants to have for breakfast. Well, breakfast, that sounds really bad. I don't take it for breakfast.
I'm very envious of your.
I'm a good parent, but they know what I want before I arrive, and it's really clever. How much are you incorporating that Stampede, and how important is that, I suppose, for the future of hospitality in terms of the way we personalize marketing and segmentation?
Yeah, I think personalization is massive. So we've got a CRM section of the platform, which has got a pretty sophisticated segment builder. So you can create, there's probably like 1 million, combinations that you could create, but as simple as I want to create a segment of people who have, spoken negatively about the business, but have visited 10 times before. So you could take that segment of customer data, and you might want to send them an automated email saying, this is a priority 1 issue for the business, because there's a really loyal customer here that's, for whatever reason, had a really bad time. And so that could, ping a notification for someone internally to deal with it, manually, or they could have an automated process which says, look, we'll give you, your next visit is on us, and we want to rectify the problem that we had. And so that could be, totally automated within the system. And so our platform is an enabler for all of those type of things. So it might be, so that's an example on the review side, but you might want to say, so an example is on the Wi-Fi side, we have the ability for people to do personalization through like a Tinder style swipe left and swipe right. I don't know if you ever used Tinder, Chris.
No, not much anymore. No.
Are you familiar with the mechanic?
I'm familiar with Tinder, if she's listening, but I haven't used it for at least 15 years.
Okay, fair play. So for the uninitiated, how it works is on Tinder, you swipe left if you swipe left if you don't like someone, you swipe right if you do. So we've taken that and we basically said our customers can create these cards which might have a picture of a cocktail and it'll say, do you like cocktails? You swipe left for no and right for yes. So if they swipe right on that option, we then know that there's a customer there that likes cocktails, and that might be true for like, do you like rugby? Do you like, I don't know, Sunday roasts or whatever it could be. So it's a fun way of doing personalization, and then all of that data can then be used within our marketing platform. So it might be that you want to promote, I don't know, a cocktail menu to people that have said they like cocktails, and a beer list to people that have said they like beer. And I think that's really the way forward. Like people don't want to go through like a list of check boxes. These are the things that I like. They want something that's fun, engaging. That's what hospitality is. So that's kind of what we've tried to do on the personalization front. And I think doing things like, we've seen it a bit where people are like, okay, if someone's told us they're a boy, that means they like football. And like for me, I hate football. And if someone sent me an email about if someone sent me an email about football, I'd be like, I am categorically not going back to that place out of principle, because they've basically shown that they don't know me. And they're trying to push something on me. And if that's the type of people that go there, absolutely fine, but I'm opting out of that process.
Yeah, it's kind of lazy marketing right now. I mean, you could argue not even 10 years ago that was the way things were done. It was that simple. But now there is the ability to be really accurate and actually quite what's the word I'm looking for? I've gone now. Doesn't matter. I'll delete that bit. But yeah, be really accurate in terms of who you target.
Totally. I think that there is the ability to be, to be really targeted, and it's frustrating, but not many places are doing it. But when you're on the receiving end of that, like you gave the McDonald's example, it feels like magic. Like it really, there's no other way of describing it. It's like, let's say they have scanned your number plate and they know that you've got a child that's 4 years old and you go in there for breakfast, and they could suggest what you want. Like, okay, invasive maybe, but also what an amazing experience for, I mean, bad example.
Yeah, I think we experience it through all the other tech we're using, right? So, if we're on Amazon, if what, most of us, I mean, I don't know, but I'm doing 60 to 70% of my shopping through Amazon for anything outside of food, I suppose, and that will probably change in the next 5 years. And I think that because we don't want to go because we've got 3 kids, we don't want to go to the shops, and they know how we behave. The stuff that pops up in front of my face every day, probably because I've got 17 Alexas in the house and all that kind of stuff. But I'm totally open. Everyone knows all about my life. Everyone, But I think I think it is brilliant, and it's one of the reasons I love tech. That I think it's engaging, it's enabling, and actually it's seamless. If it got right and you don't feel it.
I think that's the thing, when it works and it is seamless, it feels like magic. And I think that's the opportunity that I see for our business within hospitality over certainly the next 3 years, is to bring that capability that customers now expect to the kind of masses that don't currently have that functionality, so that they can create those magical moments where people go like, wow, even though, they chose obviously through GDPR and whatnot to give that information in the first instance, but ultimately it just creates a much better experience where customers feel known and they receive offers and promotions that are genuinely relevant to them.
Will you sleep easy then? Will you be happy once you found
I think
will your personality change?
I think once we've solved that problem and got critical mass there, I will sleep easy. Yeah, but at the moment,
I don't believe you. You'll be on to the next thing. And I suppose you've been in the. So is it 7 years, 8 years, 9 years that Stampede's been going?
Yeah, so we've been going for about 7 years now. Yeah.
And I was just saying, you've obviously got a lot of experience in the industry. You're working daily with, a lot of brands and actually very different brands, which is quite cool, right? Because you're seeing all different parts of the sector, which is why most people love hospitality, because it can be so different. What are the evergreen problems you're seeing, I suppose? So, like, on a final note, what things keep coming across your desk? You're thinking, why am I still seeing this? And then how are you kind of approaching those? We've probably discussed a few during the conversation, but it'd be great to know if you see any movement in people learning through the way you're bringing it.
So I think the evergreen problems that we see a lot are more around the I guess, decision-making process within hospitality operators. Obviously, the bigger they are, the slower they move, and I think that isn't hospitality specific. But I think that there is there's currently a lack of education around tech specifically within hospitality. There's obviously areas that hospitality do really well, like resourcing and menu design, for example. But just in terms of like the adoption of the right tech and how that decision-making process is worked out, I think is a problem that existed 7 years ago and is still very much a problem today. So there are a lot of solutions and systems out there that probably haven't been updated or maintained in 10 years that are still being bought today. And I think for those, if there's any of those vendors listening, like, we're coming for you. And
so aggressive, so quick.
Well,
Friday afternoon, I shouldn't have done this day. But
been a long week. I think innovation is key, and hospitality venues have always needed to innovate. And I think that the vendors of products also need to be aggressively innovating as well, so that we can get to that point where we have magical experiences going out. So I'd say that's the first one. And I think that another evergreen problem is like the reliance on, and we spoke a bit about it in the past, the reliance on third-party data or third-party platforms like those two-sided marketplaces, which have a really low barrier to entry, but a really high difficulty to wean off. And I think that if you're starting a new venue, there should be a strategy to go from relying on those maybe for your initial 10,000 customers to then having a strategy that says this is how we're going to get off whatever that two-sided marketplace might be. Because it's a real fight that's happening in the background with tech specifically, where it's a fight for control of that the customer that's visiting. And hopefully 3 years from now we'll be in a world where that control exists 100%, for the venue and the venue operators. But I think that it's a problem that I think has existed for 7 years and is still very much prevalent. Yeah, and I think like probably Deliveroo is a great example of that, where they're in this like dichotomy of wanting to serve the customer and the operator, and sometimes you're at their mercy, I guess. And
they don't give you the data either, so
but you also don't control the levers, right? So you can't say, okay, I'm quiet on a Monday, let's get more orders through Deliveroo. Unless you pay them an exorbitant amount of money for a customer that is in theory yours anyway.
It's really interesting. One of the things we're starting a thing called road test in the next month, where we're going to road test your tech, for instance, on a webinar with a bunch of operators, and have some fun with it, and and do the swipe left, swipe right, and just have some fun with it, and it's not. I'm trying to change the buying process. I really want people to understand actually that there's different ways to engaging with what's out there. Not just in tech. Actually, this could be done for a number of reasons, but I'm obsessed with this one, and really want to kind of help people who are in position I was in not 5 years ago understand things better and make the right choice before jumping in, signing a 3-year contract and getting down that road and going, oh my God, what have I done? And having to redo it all over again, or the next ops director comes in and has to redo it, whatever it might be. So to stop that, because evergreen problems in hospitality, there are so many, and they don't have to be. But we have a lot, and I suppose tech has almost, in a weird way, has created another one, right? But for the wrong reasons. So that's what we're going to do about it. And I love what you guys are doing. How do people find you if they're interested in swiping right?
So you head to our website, stampede.ai. Simple as that, and that should hopefully describe what we do. Although I like the anecdote of just taking this is what we've done for one customer, and that should actually just be our home.
You know what? That should just be your front page. I literally, if I was an operator, and I went on your front page and said, "Do you want? I can't remember. It was £10,000 extra a month." I'd be like, "Yes." Where do I sign? So that's some feedback from me. Because often it's easy, right, to be because your product is complex in the nature that you do a lot of things, right? But actually, what you do is really simple, but the results are fantastic. So There you go. I'm not a web designer. Please don't take my word for it. But yeah. Right, great. And what about you? Can people stalk you on LinkedIn and find you there?
Of course. So yeah, Patrick Clover on LinkedIn. I'm quite active there, and I'm very vocal. So if I do have any frustrations with anything, or we're working on something new, I'll share that on LinkedIn. And always, looking to get engagement from people wherever possible. So yeah, LinkedIn, Patrick Clover. I'm a guy wearing a spacesuit because we're on a mission.
Do you just want to explain that before you go? Because I saw I was working for Deliverect a little bit last summer, and they're also obsessed with rockets and space. What's your reason?
I think it's just as a it's obviously my job within the business to kind of set the tone, and I talk about this 3 years from now. This is what the world should look like, and if we're not making progress towards that, then we're not succeeding. And there's a really great. I'd probably say it's like an inspirational video of JF Kennedy talking about the space race.
Oh,
and
yes,
it's basically, I'll try and dig it out and I'll share it with you.
I'll share it in the link in the podcast. Actually, if you wouldn't mind, that'd be great, because I agree. It's fantastic.
Yeah, of course. And so what he talks about is how, because at the time, which was I think in the 60s, there wasn't the material science to actually be able to move a vehicle at the speed that they needed to in order to hit escape velocity. There wasn't the fuel efficiencies that were able to get people to the moon and back. There obviously wasn't the technology. So I think everybody knows that there was like a Nokia 3310 powering most of the Apollo missions. And it was this, if you were to look at it objectively, you would say this is impossible. But actually, this whole talk got people rallied around the fact that we do these hard things with technology and science, not because they're easy and not because it's the easy thing to do or the easy path to take, but we do them because they're hard and they're challenging. And I think that oftentimes people forget that and they revert to whatever the easiest thing that they can be doing is. But I really love the notion of like, we're doing this thing that seems impossible. There's Goliath out there, and we're very much the David, but we can achieve it, like through hard work and like just basic problem solving, really, and iteration. Like we will get to that point in 3 years, and so like perseverance, persistence. When you have a bad day, like relying on others to pick you up, and just really striving for better. So that's why my avatar is a guy.
I'm coming to your next company sprint. You've just inspired me. It's a long journey for me, but I'll be there.
More than luck any time.
Right, look, Patrick, really cool to speak to you. Really enjoyed it, and actually probably could have done an hour quite easily, but we're not allowed. I have to do a certain amount of time. But anyway, really nice to meet you, and we'll see you soon. We'll see you. Actually, you're on the marketplace. If you need to find Patrick and Stampede, they're on the marketplace. Go and have a look, and also you can review them there. And I'm now embarrassed about my reviews because he's going to be on there looking at the way I do it. So maybe I should have a conversation with Stampede. All right, thanks very much. Say goodbye,
Chris. Bye for now.